Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am B. Don, joined by the fantasy master Lothario himself, Gray Albright. How's it going over there, Gray?
Dude, I am like so crazy excited for the trade deadline. I love this. I love the trade. You know what? I have an idea. So I think everyone really likes the trade deadline, right? So here's my idea. Every day is a trade deadline. What? Is that good? Do we like that? Should I become MLB commissioner? What does everyone think? Sound off in the comments.
Or we can do it like the All-Star game, Gray. You have to have a trade made. Every team must make a trade, even if it's completely useless.
Honestly, I like your idea even better. I love that idea. Seriously, we're co-commissioners right now. Every team must make a trade deadline deal. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. What do you got?
All right, great.
What do you got? Let's go. More trades. More trades. As he screams more trades as he slowly melts into a puddle. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, so let's just jump into it, Gray. There's already been a bunch. It is Monday at 1 Eastern that we're talking here. So if you're not hearing ones that have happened, it's because they happened after we've done the podcast. Let's start with the biggest one, I think, so far of this trade deadline. That is the Yankees get Jazz Chisholm Jr. The Marlins get Jared Cerna, Augustin Ramirez, and Abraham Ramirez. Not really important for our game currently. In 101 games this year, Jazz has 13 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 46-50. He's hitting 249, 323, 407 with a 24.9% K rate and a 9.1% walk rate, which are both career best ratios for him. The Yankees have DFA'd J.D. Davis to make way. What's the record for most DFAs in a season, Gray?
I like how you occasionally slide into Elmer Fudd voice.
Yep, Elmer Fudd or just Deep Southern randomly. You know, you get all sorts of random accents from me.
Walk weight. So with Jazz Chisholm Jr.'s walk weight, okay. So a couple of things with the Jazz trade. I personally like Jazz a lot from a real baseball standpoint. I think he's fun. I'm like a down low Marlins fan. So yeah, I think I think he's good for the game if he's on the Yankees, because big market team. So that's from a real baseball standpoint, I really like the trade actually. The crazy thing is I had forgotten that the Yankees fans, there's a contingent of Yankee fans that are like the Staten Island chain wearing bro Staten Island mother of God on the lawn and chains on their chest, and they're like mad. They're big mad because Jazz Chisholm was wearing a green belt in his first game played. Which is so funny. I mean, the fact that they're all like, the Yankee way, quote unquote, and watching guys like that melt down is as someone who's from Jersey, that's funny to me. Anyway, that's a long way of getting around to actual fantasy information. So with Jazz Chisholm going to the Yankees, I think Aaron Boone. So Aaron Boone really likes to play the worst person in his lineup always at third base, right? Because he was a third baseman, and he subconsciously, this is my conspiracy theory at least, subconsciously he likes to play the worst guy at third base because he was a bad third baseman. So he doesn't, in his mind, he wants someone worse at third. So for a long time, that was DJ LeMahieu. Now, he was saying on Sunday, I believe, he was saying that he might try Jazz Chisholm Jr. at third, which is hilarious. He's actually gotten really good at center field, right? He's played center. He's played second, obviously. But third, like what? That doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know why Jazz would move to third. But for fantasy, it'd be nice to get third base eligibility, right? And then the other thing is, like, Aaron Boone also, he can't figure out how to write up a lineup. I don't know, like, it seems so obvious to me that it's like, oh, we got Jazz Chisholm Jr. Coming over, the leadoff hitter from the Marlins. He's coming over to the Yankees. Oh, let's put him fifth. Like, what? Let's put him after Austin Wells. I don't know, man. That doesn't. But I feel like that could probably change. Just as people think I'm joking when I say MLB managers are like the slowest people to realize what their lineup should look like. It's like, if you watch like maybe 10 games a year, you would know how an MLB lineup should look before an MLB manager. I don't know why that is, but they're really not very good at writing up a lineup. So Aaron Boone hopefully figures out Jazz Chisholm should be in front of Soto and Judge. So boom, huge value uptick for him there. If he's playing center, fine, that's fine. He's already got center eligibility. Maybe he gets into the infield at some point. They were talking about Gleyber Torres possibly moving to off of second to third, and Jazz going to second. I don't know. That's still sort of in flux as of right now. But, with the short porch and right and Jazz Chisholm's power, he easily can get the ball out to right field. I mean, that's no problem for him. So I could see actually an uptick in power. Potentially, if he's hitting leadoff in front of Soto and Judge, a huge uptick in runs. Even an uptick in RBIs, because the Yankees lineup's just better at the bottom than the Marlins was. Steals may not be as there if he gets in front of Soto and Judge, that is. But everything else it looks good for Jazz. I mean, I don't think you could have asked for a better place if you're a Jazz Chisholm fantasy owner for him to go in a trade.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's going to a good park. He's going to be sitting in a good lineup, and he seems happy about it too, which matters to some extent as well. So if he's in a good place, then it should all kind of work out pretty well. I agree. The lineup is not set in stone. I mean, if you get Alex Verdugo is like 260 on base at number one, Gray, you obviously got to do that. Gleyber's hitting well right now, so I could see like why Gleyber maybe is there right now, but like that's a temporary thing because it's Gleyber, so eventually he's going to go into a cold streak too. Austin Wells is kind of the same thing where like he's hitting really well right now, but I don't expect him to sit at the cleanup spot all season for the Yankees. So I think either Chisholm moves up to 4 or up to 1. 1 makes a lot more sense, but who knows what Aaron Boone's doing. They have mentioned Jazz may play third base. They've also said Gleyber may play third base, to which he said, basically, I don't want to do that. I'm not a third baseman. Why would you put me there? So we'll see how that goes. I guess you do that just to get Judge in the field if he wants to play. But I mean, why are you forcing like people around? Just move different people in and out of DH. I don't know. The Yankees seem like they're trying way too hard to do something that doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I also, in regarding the Gleyber Torres quote, it's funny because I was watching the Pete Rose documentary on HBO, which is good, but probably about 3.5 hours too long. it's a little long. But anyway, they were saying on the Pete Rose documentary how like anyone who couldn't really field, they just put him at second base. That's the standard. So it's funny to hear Gleyber Torres be like, I'm a second baseman. That's my position. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, man.
I mean, as somebody who played every single position in baseball when I was playing as, a little kid, second base, third base are a lot different. So I understand not wanting to make that change because second base, you're pretty safe. Like you're not going to get caught with a, 130 mile an hour ball to the dome like you will at third base. So I understand where he's coming from and I get it. But at the same time, like, yeah, second base is definitely the safest place to put your worst infielder, and especially now since we've gotten rid of all the shifts and everything, or at least to some extent gotten rid of shifting. So I get it, and he's about to be a free agent, so he doesn't want to look bad either.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Can we also with the trade with Chisholm going to the Yankees, it also opens up Xavier Edwards to hit leadoff in Miami, and this on Sunday he hit for the cycle, which I don't think he's going to hit for the cycle every game, but he does have a lot of speed, and he has really good contact. So I actually was pretty high on him in Fab this weekend, trying to get him. I think he could be a sneaky addition to maybe not 10-team, but even a 12-team mixed league. I would be looking at Xavier Edwards for speed and for average. And, if he's hitting for a decent average and hitting leadoff and Miami's playing for nothing, he could he could actually lead the league in steals for the final 2 months, Ellie or him, but Edwards, but Edwards really could steal 20 bags. Think about what you got from David Hamilton for those 2 random months in May, June. I think it was May, June. And now you could get that from Xavier Edwards. So I would in just about any league where you need steals, I would be interested in Xavier Edwards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been writing Edwards for a while now in the Perts League, and I also picked up Victor Robles, and they've been both hitting and stealing just like madmen. Over the last 2 weeks, Gray, Edwards is hitting 424 with 5 stolen bases. Robles is hitting 400 with 4 stolen bases. So there's a couple guys, if you look for stolen bases and they're not already owned in your leagues, definitely go grab them up and throw them in your lineups, because they're running, and for right now they're hitting. And like you said, Edwards should be moving to leadoff, which, I'm kind of debating whether that's a plus or not, because it's great that he's moving up in the lineup. We get more at bats, but he was hitting behind Jazz where he was able to, do some, get some RBIs, and there was more offense in the lineup. I don't know how much offense is going to be left in this lineup after the trade deadline comes through. So that's my only concern on Edwards, but he's actually been scoring runs even with the Marlins. So, go for it while he's doing what he's doing. Absolutely. While we're on the Marlins, let's talk about Max Meyer, who was recalled in AAA this year. He has 15 games, 58 innings. He has a 4.34 ERA, 1.48 WHIP, 27% K rate, 9.4% walk rate. At the major league level, he had 4 games, 21 innings, 3 ERA, 0.95 WHIP, 21% K rate, 6.2% walk. He's coming back from TJ. He's basically been handled with the smallest baby kid gloves that you've ever seen in your life this year. He didn't really do anything wrong at the start of the season either. They just demoted him because they weren't going to let him pitch innings, so they just threw him back in the minors. He does have 1 start back, which was on Sunday, where he went 4 innings, 3 earned, 2 Ks, 2 walks. Where are you at on Max Meyer? Should he be picked up in every league, or where are you thinking with him?
Yeah, so it's the Marlins were saying how they didn't want him to throw innings, so then they sent him down to throw innings in the minor leagues. It's very confusing. It's very confusing, man. I don't know what's going on there. I like Max Meyer a lot in the big picture. I think he's someone who I'll probably be targeting for my 6th starter overall in drafts next year. I could see that. But this year, like you mentioned, he threw 4 innings the other day. I just don't see the innings going to be there. The Marlins are a terrible team. I feel like in redraft leagues, unless, in a deep league, in a 15-team mixed league or deeper, mostly deeper for NL only or 16-team or 20-team mixed. In those leagues, sure, you can give him a flyer, but I really don't think he's going to be worthwhile for most leagues this year.
All right. Let's talk about like where I guess, would you just stream him then, it sounds like, unless you're in really deep leagues, and even then kind of understanding innings limitations and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting like 3 to 4 innings per start, it's like, it's pretty, his fantasy value is pretty minimal. So yeah, I'm not really super excited. I probably would have taken $1 flyer on him in this past Sunday, and that's out of like, well, I guess it doesn't matter if it's $100 or $1,000 fab at this point, because it's $1 is $1. But yeah, I would have probably taken $1 flyer on him in like a 15-team mixed league. But I just don't see him getting the innings that are going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, they had started to let him throw a little bit more innings-wise in the minors before getting called up. So I don't know if that was in anticipation of him maybe being able to throw a few innings, but I just don't see, with as much as they've babied him this year, like he currently has 79 innings pitched. We got about 10 weeks left. If they keep doing what they were doing in the minors, he gets 1 start a week. I mean, maybe he gets to 50 innings, but that's probably not, right? Like he's probably in like a 35, 40 inning range, which means he gets to maybe 5 innings sometimes, unless he's really efficient. So I'm with you. I think it's just kind of unfortunate that they're handling him this way, but just kind of a look into next year. So maybe you hope he doesn't do too well, because I would like to keep him as like a 5th, 6th pitcher and not like a gamble 2-3 type of guy. He just kills for the last couple months here.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think, it's difficult because like I often think like if I were a team, would, like, is it a situation where if a guy can only throw, say, I don't know, 80 innings, do you throw him for 80 innings, then shut him down in like July? Or do you throw him for like the whole season, but for like 3 or 4 innings a start, or some combination of the two? It's like, it is a tough situation where like what, I didn't understand really sending him to the minors to throw innings. Like that doesn't make any sense. That's just like, you're basically just manipulating service time or something. Like you're just holding him back so he doesn't get arbitration at a certain point. So that sucks. But what do you do? Like that is, the question. I don't know if there's really a clean answer either. Like, I don't know if like going and sending a guy out there for like 80 innings at 7 innings a start for like 3 months, and then, shutting him down for almost 12 months is really the answer either. Like, I don't know. There's got to be some fine, somewhere in between, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they let him, just because of the way they were using him in the minors before the start, if maybe in August they let him make those 4 starts as, whatever 100 pitches or 90 pitchers or whatever the limit is for him, whatever innings he can get. And then maybe September, when rosters expand, they move him back to like 2-3 innings, and that's how they wrap it up. That would be my best guess, but it's really up in the air because it's the Marlins. Like who knows what they're going to do.
Right.
Let's move over to Baltimore. They made a couple of moves, Gray. They got Zach Eflin, and they traded Mac Horvath, Jackson Baumaster, and Matthew Etzel to Tampa Bay. This is probably the next biggest move that's happened, or one of the bigger moves that's happened. Eflin hasn't quite been, the ace we saw last year. He has 19 games, 110 innings pitched, 4.09 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, an 18.9% K rate, and a 2.8% walk rate. I mean, is this better, Gray? I mean, he stays in the division, so nothing really to learn here. But moving from Tampa Bay to Baltimore, it's got to be at least a slight positive for his value, right?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think the park doesn't hurt necessarily, and also, a team that is I think they're in first right now. If not, they're, very close to first in the AL East. So a team that's going to win more games, that none of those things are going to hurt really. And then, he was probably a hair unlucky too with, his ERA as of like today. It's 4.09. He's probably closer to like a 3.6 ERA guy. So, not dramatically unlucky, but he was a little bit unlucky. He doesn't really walk anyone. So solid command, not incredible strikeouts, but solid command. And then so with solid command, you would assume he's going to get, he's going to be better for homers allowed. And he was a bit unlucky for homers allowed. So you would think that would sort of correct itself. And especially in Baltimore, ERA is a fickle stat. So for like 2 months of the season, he could potentially have like an under 3 ERA for the rest of the year, or he could get unlucky again. It's like, it's hard to say exactly. It's such a fickle stat, but he should be better than he was. And, this is probably as positive as an uptick in value as you're going to find for him. Maybe Seattle would have been about equal because the park is so good there. But yeah, I like the move for him. Yeah, it's I would say it's definitely a positive. We'll see. We'll see if he can, put together a solid 2 months. But it looks good. I do think the fact that his strikeouts are so far down this year, I am a little bit less excited about him than I was in, say, March, when, I was pretty excited for Eflin in March. But now I'm like, he looks to me like a decent number, 3 to 4 fantasy starter, where I feel like in the preseason, I don't know exactly, I forget where I had him ranked, but I would have guessed probably a 2 to 3 in the preseason, and now he's probably more like a 3 to 4. But yeah, or even a 5. I mean, but he's good for all leagues. I would say, and the fact that this trade makes him even better. So he's definitely, rosterable and, a worthwhile grab if, you're able to trade for someone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Ray. I'm split because he basically looks like Zach Eflin has looked like his whole career other than last year, which is fine. He's a fine pitcher. He's like a 4 ERA, 1.15, 1.2 whip guy with like low 20s Ks. And like, that's kind of what I think you're getting. Maybe the ERA improves, the win should improve. So he's moving up, but I don't know that he's maintaining anything really from last year. It doesn't help. Velocity's down this year a little bit. The cutter and the slider, which were kind of some of the key to the breakout, aren't moving quite the same as they were last year. As you mentioned, the Ks are way down from 26.5 to 18.9%. He's slightly above a streamer, but I don't know how far above a streamer he is, Gray. Especially in like a 10 or 12 team league. For the season, he's 78th starting pitcher on the player rater. Over the last month, he's 56. So maybe he's like a top 40 guy when you start factoring in innings limits and things like that. They're going to start hitting guys. But it's been a little bit of a disappointing season from a guy I thought we were getting a breakout from.
Yeah. I can't argue with any of that. I expected more. So, yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the other trade that Baltimore made. They get Seranthony, Dominguez, and Cristian Pache, and then the Phillies are getting Austin Hayes. So they're both kind of just filling some gaps here. Pache is going to just be a bench defensive replacement still. Seranthony is going to join the bullpen. He's not likely a closer, but just bolsters that pen. And then Austin Hayes, he may have to be at the bottom of the Philly order, but maybe he can finally hit some home runs now that he's out of Baltimore. Gray, what do you think about Austin Hayes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Phillies lineup is pretty set in stone for like the first 7 hitters, right? And then there's a little bit of flexibility towards the end of it, but I really think that they prefer. I don't know. I wouldn't say prefer, but I mean their bottom of their lineup. Unfortunately, Bryson Stott is in there in that sort of bottom, but Austin Hayes is probably the 9 hitter when he's in the lineup, and also like I think if I'm the Phillies, at least I would be focused on as good a defense as I can find, and I would say probably Johan Rojas is probably a hair bit better than Hayes, but yeah, I mean potentially Austin Hayes is probably 15-team mixed league. I would look at him to see like if maybe his new environment helps him, and the stadium's better, obviously, especially for a righty. So maybe his power upticks a little bit in Philly versus Baltimore. Maybe he plays 75% of the time. And then if he's, the bottom of the Phillies lineup is not better than the Orioles, but it's better than a lot of teams' top of the lineups, because then you have Schwarber and Trey Turner behind you. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the worst move. I would say probably a 15-team mixed league, interest in a 15-team mixed league and deeper. 12-team, I could see potentially playing matchups in a 12-team if you're, you have if you're like in a daily league and you're able to move them in and out of the lineup. It's better for him, definitely, because in Baltimore, he was getting really squeezed for playing time, and the stadium, like I mentioned, is much worse. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of an uptick. I'm not super excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been very good this year. So, I mean, you don't get so excited about a guy joining the bottom. And as you mentioned, the Phillies lineup is stacked. So, really nowhere for him to go except, Brandon Marsh maybe doesn't need to play as much as as high as he hits. But everybody else is pretty much locked in there. So, he's going to join. He's going to be better, but still, like you said, probably just a platoon guy if you can, slot him in and out, maybe get subbed out for defensive replacement. So it's kind of hard especially in shallow leagues, to really play guys like that who are part-time and then also getting subbed out for defensive replacement potentially. So that is tough. Let's move over to let's stay with Philly here since we're already there. They're getting Carlos Estevez. The Angels are getting Samuel Aldegari and George Klassen. I mean, do you think they stay with Hoffman? Does Estevez come in and close? Are we looking at a committee? What are your best guesses on how Philly's going to approach this bullpen now?
In the on Fangraphs where they have their depth charts, they have their ages for all the players listed, and for Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez, they're both exactly the same age. It's weird. Okay, so happy birthday in end of December, early January for those guys. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Jeff Hoffman has been so good, right? I mean, he's been like ridiculously good. But they also have, kind of iffy other relievers, a little bit iffy with like Alvarado has been super iffy, and well, they got rid of Dominguez. they gave the Dominguez problem over to Baltimore. But yeah, the Phillies have been using Hoffman basically as like anytime a good hitter comes up, it's like here's our best reliever, which is fine for real baseball. I mean, that actually works out pretty good for the Phillies, that they're able to throw Jeff Hoffman as much as they have. Unfortunately for fantasy, that means he's not really getting the ninth inning every time out. He gets it a decent amount. I mean, he gets it as much as, he gets. I mean, he has enough fantasy value that he's worthwhile. He's worthwhile rostering in every league. Jeff Hoffman, that is. So no offense for Jeff Hoffman. I mean, he's been incredible, but he doesn't necessarily get every save for the Phillies, and he's not going to get every save now. They use him like whenever there's a good hitter up for the other team, they bring in Jeff Hoffman. So I think Estevez, who I was a little bit worried in like April, he looked a little iffy, but he's really he's buckled down and been great for like the last, I don't know, like 3 months maybe. Carlos Estevez looks really good.
I don't think he's given up a run since June, Gray.
Yeah.
May. He hasn't given up a run since May.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. He's been great. I mean, it's like with most closers on my fantasy teams, it's just like set it and forget it. It's like I have Carlos Estevez, but I don't fully pay attention to what he's doing because I know he's been great. So I just put him in my lineup and just forget it. But Hoffman has been great too. So actually in a bunch of leagues, I have Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez, and I'm not even thinking about dropping either of them. I'm rolling with both of them. I'm assuming they're both going to be great. Hopefully I get some vulture wins from Hoffman and some saves from Estevez, or vice versa. I think they're probably going to use matchups, and it could be, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like mostly, it could be either. It's hard to say who's going to get the saves because it kind of matters like where the opposing team's lineups fall. So it's not like, it's super crystal clear. If I were them, if I were the Phillies, that is, I would probably go Estevez like 60% of the time and Hoffman like 35% of the time. And then like the other 5% just like a sort of committee or whatever. And that's only because I think Hoffman just works better in every inning. So if like you have a tough 7th inning, you bring in Hoffman, then you throw Alvarado for the 8th, and then Estevez closes, or you have a tough 8th inning, so you throw Alvarado in the 7th, and then Hoffman in the 8th, and then Estevez in the 9th, or you have a really tough 9th inning, and then Hoffman gets the save. So I think that's kind of how it's going to work out, but it's hard to say completely.
Yeah, I mean, we have to wait and see, especially when you get two guys who've been as good as Hoffman and Estevez have been. But I think you're right. They've been using Hoffman in that firefighter role. Estevez has been strictly like 9th inning for the Angels. Like he hasn't really moved around a lot. So it just makes sense to kind of keep Hoffman in that firefighting role. And if that happens to be the 9th inning, then so be it. But I do think it's probably, a good split here. But to your point, start them both. You'll probably get a little bit of everything. And especially if you have innings pitched limits, getting some good ratios and good numbers from, top end closers and relievers is not the worst way to go about it.
Yeah.
Moving over to Seattle. They're getting Randy Arozarena. Tampa Bay is getting Aiden Smith, Brody Hopkins, and a player to be named later. Randy, you have to figure he's going somewhere at the top of the lineup. I know the Mariners have scored runs, but like you look at the lineup and you're like, how have they been scoring runs? And so you got to figure Randy's sitting in at the top. He has 15 home runs, 16 stolen bases, 46-37. He's hitting 212, 319, 393. Those numbers don't sound great, but he has really picked it up after just a horrendous start to the season. And then they also got Yimi Garcia from Toronto, who's just going to slot in from Munoz. So I'll just mention that. We don't have to talk much there. But what do you think about Randy Arozarena?
Yeah, he's like the one we've talked about so far, because I feel like most of the guys have gotten a positive uptick on fantasy value, whereas Arozarena, Seattle's just a terrible park, man. It's just really bad. I think it's good for the Mariners, right? I mean, obviously, but I mean, who cares? Who cares if it's good for the Mariners? It's not good for us. I don't know, man. I worry that like this is the kind of thing that could really kill a guy's career. Going to Seattle is like, it's terrible. I mean, it's just so bad. It's such a bad park for hitters. And then he was already, really hitting so poorly. Like it's just his hard hit percentage is just like awful. He looks like he got old. I don't know if it's age or he's just like, maybe it's I haven't really dug in on like what pitches he's swinging at and stuff. It looks like, from just glancing at it, it looks like he's making similar contact with like O swing and Z swing and that stuff. So he's not necessarily swinging at bad pitches, but yeah, it's just not good contact. It's just terrible. I mean, bad contact in a bad park, it's not good. Sorry, I hate to say it. Randy seems like, he seems like a fun guy, and it seems like, I don't know. It's just not good, man. Unfortunately, it's not good for fantasy. It looks like he's probably, I don't know, if he were coming into the season, you had to think he was going to be a top 25 outfielder, maybe at least maybe top 20 outfielder. Now I probably would like maybe top 45, 50. It's like he's still got speed, which is good, but his power is hurting, and the weak contact has killed his average. So it's not even like he's striking out a ton more. He's just making terrible contact, and it's not like terrible contact. I don't know, it's like, is he fixing that? I don't think so. So I don't know, man. I'm not a huge Arozarena fan for this, but this trade doesn't help him at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I assume you're referencing season-long numbers, and I don't feel like that's fair to him at this point, given as bad as April and May were and how good he's been since then. I just think the season-long numbers are a little bit drowned in how bad he was. So it is a negative move going to Seattle. Just the ballpark is not friendly. I think it's actually maybe the worst ballpark for right-handed hitters in the league. Maybe not for power specifically, but just as a overall product. So that's not exactly ideal. I do think he's drops in value. I don't think it's quite as bad as what it sounds like you're saying he should fall into. In the last 30 days, he was number 14 on the player rater. I would say he's probably a top 30 outfielder still with this move, but I'd probably moving him out of that 20 range that he's kind of been sitting in for the last couple months, just because of this move, to a worse park. And it's not like, again, I don't know how this lineup is scoring as many runs as they are, Gray. So I really don't understand that part of it. So I'm not even going to say it's a great run scoring one, but it should be better. I don't know. It's slightly down, I guess, in value is what I'm long way around.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. That's a fair point. He has been better recently, so maybe he just started off slow, and wouldn't be the first guy who started off slow and then picked it up and was his old self. So yeah, maybe he can get a handful of homers and continue to steal bases and maybe hit for a little bit better average than he has been for like season long, but relatively close to where he was for the last 30 days. I don't even think he's going to be there, but maybe top 30, like you said. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's all.
By the way, when I was agreeing with you, like I had this flashback to last week when you were like Senga over Robbie Ray. Oh, any apologies? What's going on?
Hey, it happens, Gray. We can't get everything right, and it's also been one start. So let's you can victory lap it all you want. This feels like first week victory lapping, which we make fun of endlessly. So if you want to take
for the fact that Senga's out for the rest of the season. Besides
It happens, Gray. His start was good, though. He gave you a good start.
It actually was better than I expected.
It was a good start. I can't predict injuries. I think I said that. I was like, as long as he's healthy, I think he's better. I didn't say how long that was going to be, Gray. I didn't give specifics. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and move over. Chicago Cubs, my Cubbies, they're apparently going for it. They traded for Isaac Paredes. Tampa Bay gets Chris Morell, Hunter Biggie, and Ty Johnson. Cubs fill their third base need that's been a need for, I don't know, like a decade. I was out on Twitter defending the move, but it's also trading with the Rays, which almost never goes over well. So what do you think? Any concern over the move for Paredes? I know some people are worried about the expected home run numbers, and he's never been like a hard hit, average exit velocity guy.
Right. So I got some thoughts on that. I tend to agree with you in this because it's like, I feel like expected homers is really more art than science. Like, so many people are saying like, oh, his expected homers went down like 13 homers over the course of his career or something. And it's like, yeah, but he was in Tampa. I mean, that's, it's like, that's where he was playing. It's, I don't know, man. Like, it's like, if a guy is in like a vacuum and hitting, and he's like, I got to hit my way out of the vacuum, then he's hitting his way out of a vacuum. But if a guy's in a closet and he's like, I got to hit my way out of a closet. These are weird analogies. I'll grant you that. But it's like, where a guy's actually at, that's where he hits to. So he's hitting in Tampa. So guess what? He's going to hit in Tampa. Like, that's what he's doing. I don't know, man. I really like, I'll be interested in seeing what happens with Paredes, because I too saw all the pushback on how bad like this move was for the Cubs and for Paredes. And I was like, do you guys really? I mean, it's like Morell is kind of a mess. Like, let's be honest. Morell couldn't field, and he also was like hitting like 205. So it's like, I don't know, man. I get it. I get their argument about like the expected homers and his exit velocity, Paredes, that is. But I don't know. I feel like I kind of agree with you, where it's like, yeah, he's in Wrigley now, so he's going to hit bombs in Wrigley. I mean, because that's what guys do. They're like, okay, I got to hit the ball an extra 7 feet. Okay, I'm going to hit it. I don't know. I honestly, I feel like there's way more art than science in expected homers than a lot of people are giving it. It's sort of like, anything expected, I would not put too much weight on. Like, expected batting average is a mess. Like, it's not a good stat. Expected ERA is like, oh, really? I mean, there's a lot of like looking at numbers, and people get a little bit tied up in like what StatCast says, even though it's like, you can take some stats with a grain of salt. Like, everything isn't like, oh, well, he's in it 13 less homers. Oh, well, bad trade for the Cubs. I don't know, man. I'm not fully convinced on that.
Yeah.
What I'll say for fantasy, though, with Paredes, I mean, he is just a power guy who hits like 240 to 250. So it's not like, I mean, you're not getting a ton. I don't think this move really, I feel like this is a neutral move, if anything. I don't think this is really like, it doesn't kill his fantasy, doesn't help his fantasy. It's kind of like, the Rays weren't a good lineup. The Cubs aren't really a good lineup. It's sort of the same difference, So I don't know. But with Morell, I think this could either like really kill his value, or it could actually make it decent, because like as a righty in the Tampa Bay lineup, he's either going to get platooned all the time and never hit against righties, which is awful, like obviously, or Cash is going to put him in the middle of the lineup, and he's going to be their 3-hole hitter or cleanup hitter, and he's just going to sit there because he's a righty, and he doesn't have anyone to platoon him out with. So as of right now, I have no idea how it's going to play out. But I think it's probably a good move for Morell, because also the Rays tend to run more. So I think it's a little bit of a better move for Morell, but I think it's probably neutral for both of them, is my guess.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's the Rays, so there's always a chance of platooning. And you're right. If he gets platooned out versus righties, that's going to kill any value he has. Although he's, for what it's worth, in both the last 2 years, he's actually hit righties better than he has lefties, at least for power. So, if anything, I don't think he's necessarily going to be a street platoon. Maybe he sits against, the really tough righties, which if it's like that, it's not really that bad. It's like lefties sitting against really tough lefties. It might be a benefit. I really hope for his sake. He seems like a really good kid, and, he comes from the Cubbies, so I hope he gets it together and figures out what he was doing this year, because it was bad this year. He's just not making contact. He's picked up the K rate again recently, which had gotten better, and now it just has plummeted again. So, I think my line on Twitter was basically like, Chris Morell could be anything. He could even be Isaac Paredes, like a 330 home run, 250 hitter. Like that's kind of the upside with a little bit more speed, and he's just terrible on defense. So this also opens up the DH for a number of people on the Cubs who can use a few days there every now and then.
Oh, we have breaking news. Tommy Edman to the Dodgers and Erick Fedde to the Cardinals. First reactions. What do we got? First reaction.
So Fedde to the Cardinals.
I actually have a first reaction. Okay. So thanks for asking, Gray. So the Dodgers here's my thoughts. The Dodgers are throwing anything they can get at the wall. They're just like, we spent $3 billion, right? So it's like we can't put together a lineup anymore. How do we spend $3 billion and we have Ohtani and no one else? What are we doing? What are we doing wrong here, guys? Because we have River Ryan as our number one pitcher, and we have Ohtani and nothing else in the lineup. How did this happen? So, I think Edman probably slots in as their utility guy, but they were trying to throw against the wall Nick Ahmed, which is an absolute joke. So Edman probably works in as a utility guy, but he also relieves them of doing the Nick Ahmed every night. It sounds like Nick at night. Okay. Anyway, I think Edman also, unfortunately, I don't know what's going on with his eye, him, Max Muncy, and Eduardo Rodriguez literally have gone on the IL, and you've never heard another thing about him. It's like, wait, does Max Muncy still play baseball? What's going on? Wait, what happened with Eduardo Rodriguez? So Tommy Edman's kind of been in the same boat where it's like he really disappeared forever. So he's still on a rehab assignment as of right now. So this isn't even I don't think this happens immediately. I don't know if I don't think he's activated immediately. I would have to, I have to check on the news for that. But yeah, I think Edman probably slots in as a solid, utility guy / shortstop, helps out, gets Edman out of the lineup. And then he probably, right now the Dodgers lineup's such a mess. Gavin Lux is hitting third. So I would say Edman's probably an 7, 8, 9 guy, somewhere in there. I would say, the fact that the Dodgers have Kevin Biggio playing more than the Jays had Kevin Biggio playing. So I think Edman probably has, he has some value if he's healthy and in the Dodgers lineup. He's, a little bit of power. Dodger Stadium's actually good for power, so he should be okay on that. He has, a solid speed. He's going to be in a good lineup. It's not a bad move for Tommy Edman's fantasy value. If he's out there on waivers in any leagues, I would probably stash him now because he should be back soon, if not immediately, if not at some point this week. I think he's real close. So yeah, I like the move for Edman. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good move, assuming he's healthy and coming back in. I agree. You could take out Ahmed's spot. Kevin Biggio's hitting a little bit, but we know that's only going to last for so long. So he could take Kevin Biggio's spot. So I think there's any number of places that he can kind of fall in and get some playing time. And in the lineup, I mean, I feel like he could hit anywhere from 5 through 9, really, because after like Teoscar, it's all pretty iffy after that. So anything could happen with him slotting in the lineup once he returns. So I mean, I think he fits into the speed guys like we were talking about earlier. Like, would you rather have Xavier Edwards or Tommy Edman?
I kind of like Edwards or Edman. I like Edwards, I think.
Yeah, I'm going Edwards there. Just he's going to hit at the top. Yeah. Even a bad line up the top is better than the bottom of a good usually. Maybe if the Dodgers lineup was at full strength, that might be different, but not right now. How about Victor Robles, who's actually been really hot, as I mentioned earlier, and also just stealing everything.
I'm going Robles as well.
Okay. So he's a speed option, Edman, but not, if either of those guys are available, you're looking at, them before you would look this way.
What was you on Robles? You're going Robles over.
I'm going Robles. He's also hitting at the top of the lineup right now. Again, top lineup is a nice place to be for a speedster, especially ones that are hitting like 400 right now. So
yeah, I actually just this week in Fab. I actually picked up Robles in a 12-team mixed league in my labor league. So yeah, I'm going Robles as well. Yeah.
All right. How about one more, Gray? How about Edman or Jacob Young?
I'll go Edman there.
Yeah, Jacob Young is so hot and cold. He's been doing well recently, but that basically means I assume really bad things are about to happen, and he's also platooning. So assuming Edman's going to play every day, I'll take him. If Edman's platooning, then I think I might go Young, but I just think Young's faster. I think that's the only difference for me at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, great. Let's move over to the Mets after that breaking news alert.
Wait, we have breaking news. Erick Fedde.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about the other side of this trade.
So I would, I would say Fedde to me is like kind of what we were saying with Eflin earlier. I don't see really a ton difference. Maybe a hair worse command with Fedde, but he's got a hair better strikeouts. So, scroll back or rewind to what we were saying on Eflin, and then actually don't do that, because if you do that, then you're going to get to this point again, and you're going to go back to Eflin, and you're going to be in this weird time circle. Time is a circle, and I'm stuck in this podcast. I think Fedde and Eflin are kind of a decent comparison. I don't mind Fedde, and Cardinals, the park's good. The team isn't really that good. It's better than the White Sox, though, obviously. So maybe a little bit better for wins. But he's like he's like a 3.75 ERA guy who's just getting a little bit lucky on Babbitt right now, but he's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would take Eflin over Fedde, because I think, to your point, Eflin's been a little unlucky and Fedde's been a little lucky. So put them in new spots, and then I think all that kind of neutralizes, or at least that's the way I'm going to think about it as I'm projecting them out for the rest of the season. And so in that situation, I do think I'm taking Eflin, just because at this point, Fedde's due for a little bit of a blow up, I feel like.
Yeah.
All right, now moving over the Mets, Gray. They're getting Jesse Winker. The Nationals are getting Tyler Stewart. The Mets are also getting Ryan Stanek, while the Seattle is getting Rylan Thomas. Let's talk about Jesse Winker first. He probably slots in as an everyday outfielder. 101 games this year. He's had 11 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 51, 45, 257, 374, and 419. Is this a positive move, neutral move? What are you thinking in regards to Jesse Winker?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say it's positive because it's a better lineup, but he is kind of like wherever you put him. I mean, he was in Cincy and he hit 24 homers. And that felt like really the peak for him. Metco isn't really, Citi Field isn't really a great park, but it's and the Nationals, he's kind of like a barely 17-ish homer guy with, this year he's actually stealing a lot of bases, which I don't know where that was coming from, but that might have been a Nationals thing because like Lane Thomas was stealing a ton of bases too. So I don't know. Maybe Winker continues to steal on the Mets. I don't know, because the Mets aren't necessarily the a team that they're kind of middle of the road for steals. I don't mind the move. I think it's kind of neutral, if anything. I'm not really a huge Jesse Winker fan. I think he's fine in deep leagues. He's like one of those guys who's like in a 15-team mixed league or deeper. He's great because he gets counting stats and he doesn't kill you necessarily in any category. So it's fine. But in like shallower leagues, if you're in like a 12-team mixed league or shallower, it's kind of hard to carry a guy like Jesse Winker. I mean, he's fine, but he's also very boring.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is a little bit boring. I mean, he's been pretty solid this year. He's a top 30 outfielder on the season on the player rater, so he's been very much respectable in regards to the player rater numbers. 11-14. He has really good walk rate, 13.9%. I think the only problem for him is like his skill set really benefits from sitting at the top of a lineup, and with the way that the Mets are constructed, that's not going to happen. So I think from just an overall value standpoint, he's joining a better lineup, probably dropping in that lineup to a point that's not great for his value though. So I would say probably neutral and maybe even a slight downturn for me here. Park and just, the spot, the fact that he's not going to hit at the top with Lindor and Nemo there.
Yeah.
Let's move over to Boston. They get James Paxton. The Dodgers get Moises Bolivar. Boston also gets Danny Jansen, and Toronto gets Edinson Paulino, Cutter Coffee, and Gilberto Batista. Got to assume Paxton slots into rotation in 18 games this year. He has 89 and a third innings, 4.43 ERA, 1.46 whip, 16.4% K rate, 12.3% walk rate. And after a very strong start to the season, he's starting to fade, Greg.
Yeah. He faded so bad that the Dodgers were like, we don't really have any pitchers, but we also don't want you.
We're also done with you.
We're like, basically half of our team is on the IL, but we don't like you. I don't think this helps him at all either. Like Dodger Stadium's a hitter's park, but Fenway's like going to be brutal. I mean, I wouldn't go near James Paxton even as a streaming option. I would not touch James Paxton. So I don't think this is a good move for him. I think this is a move for the Red Sox where, like, I think the Red Sox are getting accused of not really doing anything at the trade deadline, so they can look at their fans and be like, "We got you, James Paxton, right?"
Yeah, you guys liked him like 10 years ago when he was with us. You gotta like him still.
What about Danny Jansen, huh? We got that. Danny Jansen actually is a bit more interesting because, Like, I don't really buy the whole Dom Smith is a first baseman. I know that they have Casas, but Tristan Casas is on the same team as like Eduardo Rodriguez, Max Muncy, and Tommy Edman. Like, we don't know what happened to Tristan Casas. At some point, he was playing baseball, we think, but we're not sure. So they have room at first base. So actually, if Danny Jansen can play, if he can hit, if he can play first base and hit, because Fenway is a good park for, especially for righties. If he can hit potentially at first base, it could be a really good move for Danny Jansen. Maybe becomes like a top 12 catcher, top 10 catcher if he's playing first base and hitting. So yeah, I like him. I like Danny Jansen a lot for this move. I think it helps him. But with that said, if he doesn't play first base and he's just getting platooned with Connor Wong, then it's neither here nor there. Then it's like he is what he is.
Yeah, I think he kind of needs that. He needs to bump Dom Smith or somebody from that lineup for him to get everyday playing time. So unless that happens, yeah, I mean, backup catcher isn't really a fantasy get. A couple here that I don't really know matter, Gray. Texas, the Rangers get Carson Kelly. Detroit gets Liam Hicks and Tyler Owens. Carson Kelly probably becomes the backup catcher for Andrew Knizner. Can't imagine they're going to carry 3 catchers, and maybe it's about time to activate
Carson Kelly.
anyways.
Carson Kelly is the backup for Jonah Heim.
Yes.
And yeah. Sorry. I mean, I thought you said Knizner was the starter. I'm sorry.
No, he's the backup, and now Kelly's going to replace him as backup.
I got you. I got you. Carson Kelly. So Carson Kelly's backing up the backup. Got you. Very good. Okay. I do have some thoughts on Carson Kelly going to the Rangers. Why? 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 I would be like, if I worked in the Rangers front office and I heard this move go down, I'd walk into the GM's office and be like, why? Why? What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Seriously. Do we need Carson Kelly to finish third? What are we doing? Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good defensively, but yeah, I don't know. This was a necessary trade for them. I mean, maybe it helps the pitching staff, but I think the big news is maybe eventually we get to see Josh Jung, who also joins that group that we just got done talking about, that just disappear into injury nothingness and then reappear occasionally. Yeah. The Diamondbacks get AJ Puk. Miami gets Devizyon De Los Santos and Andrew Pintar. Slots into the bullpen with Gankle. I mean, I assume for now Sewell stays at closer, but he's also been having his own issues, so it might not be a bad time to pick up Gankle or Puk if you're speculating on something.
Actually, because I walked into the Rangers GM office. I was working there, and I got fired, right? Because I walked in, I was like, "Why did you trade for Carson Kelly, man?" so he actually just fired me. So I got a new job over the Diamondbacks team, right? So I walk into the front office there, and I'm like, "Hey, man, why did you trade away all these prospects for AJ Puk?" And unfortunately, I just got fired from my Diamondbacks job as well. Yeah, I don't know prospects nearly as well as a lot of people, so I don't want to like go too far down the road of like the De Los Santos thing, but he looks really good, and he's like 21 years old. I really have a hard time understanding the AJ Puk move. Like this move, beyond, I think probably more so than any other move that has been made thus far. This is the most confusing to me because like the Diamondbacks, I mean, AJ Puk, like what? He's not really, I mean, he didn't work as a starter. Like everyone saw that. So he's a setup guy. Okay. But you can also just turn, I mean, they turned Joe Monopoly into a setup guy. I mean, you could turn failed starters into setup guys and they're totally fine. So why would you send De Los Santos away for this is like really a bizarre move for me, unless there is something going on where I'm not aware of, like something going on in the minor leagues, and like he was not gelling with the team or something. Like that's Devison De Los Santos. Like unless there's like some personality issues that I'm not aware of, I don't know, honestly. But he's 21 years old and he's got 14 homers in 49 games. I mean, I know it's PCL, but he was killing the ball in Double-A as well. So I really don't get this deal at all. I don't know, man. That was really a surprising one for me. But anyway, with all that said, as far as fantasy goes, yeah, I would assume Sewald stays the closer, unless he blows another save or two, like he blew one on Sunday. So, you know, I mean, closers are fluid. So if Sewald looks bad, like the next the next ninth inning, he gets, yeah, maybe they switch it out. But for now, AJ Puk is just a middle reliever.
Yeah, I think so. I will say, for whatever it's worth, Sewell's going to be a free agent next year. Puk is under control for 2 more seasons, so that's probably why he costs a little bit more. I agree, it's probably a little bit of an overpay for somebody like AJ Puk. I feel like there's other relievers you probably could have gotten cheaper that are of equal caliber. And, you know, if you need one for next year, you just get one next year in free agency. Or you just make one, like you said. Like, you just take a failed starter, make them a bullpen arm. There's a lot of ways to go about it. But for now, he slots in there. And again, I think Ginkel and Puk are potentially guys to look at, because Sewald hasn't looked good. And I believe his last start, his velocity was down a couple miles per hour. And that usually is a bad sign in regards to a potential injury. So again, if you're looking at, you know, speculating at save opportunities, that might be one. Moving over to San Diego, they're getting Jason Adam from the Rays, who are getting Dylan Lesko, Homer Bush Jr., and JD Gonzalez. Jason Adam, you know, likely slots in behind Robert Suarez. So probably not a lot for us to discuss here, but again, it feels like a lot to give up for a bullpen.
Oh, okay. So I told you guys how I got fired from my Rangers front office job, right? And then I got fired from my Diamondbacks front office job. But you're gonna be happy to hear that I'm now hired by the Padres. So I'm going to go into the front office now and ask them, why did you do this move? What are you guys doing? Oh, I think I just got fired from my Padres front office. Now this move to me isn't quite as crazy as the Puk move, because Jason Adam is really good. But again, like, Dylan Lesko was their first round pick in 2022. Like, you gave that up for Jason Adam? I don't know, man. That seems like a lot. It seems like an overpay. I got to be honest. I don't fully understand it, but yeah, for fantasy, it's similar to the last move. I mean, he's a middle reliever for fantasy.
Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. I mean, there's a few other middle reliever trades here, Gray. I'm just going to run through them real quick. Then if you want to say anything afterwards, we can talk about it. But Milwaukee's getting Nick Mears. Rockies are getting Bradley Blaylock and Yohaner Herrera. Kansas City is getting Michael Lorenzen. Texas is getting Walter Pennington. Detroit is getting Ricky Vanasco. The Dodgers are getting Cash. The Red Sox just got Quinn Priester from the Pirates for Nick York. That just happened while we were recording the podcast. Anything to say about any of those bullpen notes, Gray?
No.
All right, and another one that happened while we were during the podcast is Ty France got traded. He is going to the Reds for catcher Andrew Salcedo and some cash. Actually, Ty France and Cash are going to the Reds for Andrew Salcedo. So the Mariners had to pay to get Ty France off of their team.
As well they should. Yeah, unfortunately, Ty France doesn't really have any value outside of an NL only league. But unfortunately, he could, because he's a righty, so he could potentially, like, David Bell he's a big dummy, right? So David Bell could see that and be like, maybe I should do a platoon here. So this could cause problems for some of the guys who we already like on the Reds. So hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully Ty France doesn't really play much, but he is a righty, so it could cause issues. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully Ty France never plays. That's my hope. But we'll see.
I mean, I don't really understand this move. I don't know why they needed Ty France. I mean,
the Reds love corner infielders. This is like, I don't know why, but the Reds can't get enough corner infield. They're like, whoa, what is this? Heimer Candelaria? I like that. I don't why? We have Spencer Steer and Jonathan India, and I don't care. I like Heimer Candelaria.
I wonder, Gray, if this might mean, unfortunately, that McLean's the rehab isn't going as well.
Oh my God! Actually, McLean is on the same team as Edward Rodriguez, Max Muncy, Tristan Casas. Yeah, I mean, like, where did these guys go, bro? Like, seriously, it's like, Matt McLean. What's your timetable, man? Sometime before the next millennial. Okay. All right. We'll see you around, man.
All right, great. Let's move over to a couple other bullpen notes here. Mason Miller goes to the IL. Who are you looking at in Oakland if you're looking for saves there?
Well, I guess Tyler Ferguson got the save on Sunday. So he seems like, I mean, it could be Urseg, but I would just go Ferguson because he got the first save. So I don't think there's any reason to speculate beyond that unless you're in like an AL only league.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm going with Ferguson. He's gotten the first two saves. It seems like it's his job until he screws up.
Yeah,
because Urseg has been given a chance before, and it never works out very well.
Right.
Shelby Miller has a couple of saves. Talking about failed starters moving to the bullpen. Is he the closer in Detroit now?
Yeah, I would say probably him and Foley are probably in a timeshare. But yeah, I would say Shelby Miller maybe is on the top of the list now. Really great. I think Shelby Miller was on waivers in one of my leagues and I didn't even put in a bid. Like I don't want that headache, to be honest. But if you're desperate for saves, you do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah, I'm in that spot in a few leagues, and I've scooped up every potential closer I can, and Shelby Miller was on that list, as was Tyler Ferguson. So I'm just grabbing up everybody I can. I even grabbed up Victor Vodnik in Colorado, so help me God. So chasing all close saves down I can. Great. Why don't we give the people some waiver names, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, so honestly, we probably should have talked about him in much greater length, but Tyler Fitzgerald has been like, I mean, can you Babe Ruth move over, man? we got a new greatest hitter in baseball history. Tyler Fitzgerald was probably the pickup of for me at least, it was one of my best pickups of the year because I picked him up previous Sunday. I didn't wait until this week. He was going for like over $100 in $1,000 fab leagues. So he was going for a ton. I got him for like $3 like the week before. So, pat myself on the back there. I think he's probably now rostered in like every league. Like he had one of the most insane weeks. And the Giants, honestly, it feels like every week have a new guy. It's like Helio Ramos. Woo! Let's go. Tyler Fitzgerald. Yeah, man. Let's do it. So I think Tyler Fitzgerald could actually have a little bit of staying power. He's got power and speed. He looked really good. I kind of wish we would have spent more time on him. But anyway, he's been hot. He's probably rostered at this point in every league. So, it is what it is when it comes to him. Anyway, moving along, Josh Bell is probably going to be on a new team by the time you listen to this. But if he's not, He's been hot either way. Xavier Edwards, who we mentioned earlier, Lawrence Butler, who I think we've mentioned for like 2 or 3 weeks now. He's been really hot. Brandon Lau on the Rays has been hot. I think he had like 6 homers in July, something like that. He's been hot. Anyway, Michael Toglia, Rockies first baseman. He's hitting everything. He as well. I think he has like 8 or 9 homers in July, something crazy like that. Like he had an insane month of July. Austin Wells has been hot. Jeff McNeil's been hot. Jorge Polanco, Nolan Chanel, Gleyber Torres, Jackson Morell, Colton Cowser, Juan Yepes, Justin Turner, and incredibly Javi Baez, which I would not rely on going forward. But if you're going back in time, Javi Baez just had a good week. If you're going forward in time, not so great.
I might have to clip you recommending Javi Baez just to have for the future, Ray. Just for future reference,
I specified only if you're going back in time. If you're in this world that moves forward in time, then maybe not such a great pickup.
Oh, I'm not giving you that. I'm not clipping that part. I'm strictly clipping the bad part.
Also, we mentioned earlier, but Victor Robles has been also very hot.
Oh yeah, he's been awesome. Streaming options, Gray. There's 4 teams that you can pretty much start everybody against this week, and that is the Rockies, the White Sox, the Angels, and the Mariners, who have been kind of pretty bad recently. That's like Griffin Canning, Luis Severino, Randy Vasquez, Carson Palmer, JP Sears, Alex Marsh, Simeon Woods Richardson, Michael Wacha, Tyler McGill, Kyle Freeland, David Peterson, James Paxton, even maybe, Tyler Phillips. Other than those guys, Jake Irvin versus Milwaukee, Andrew Heaney at St. Louis, Ryan Nelson versus Washington, Sean Manaea versus Minnesota. And that's a list, Gray. If anybody has specific questions, you can find us on Twitter. I am at RazBeaton. Gray is the owner of the @Razzball account. You can leave them in the comment section on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Whether you watch or listen to us, if you rate and review, subscribe, like, all that all helps. And until next time, Gray, I'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, Lates.